95% of the students in India suffer from what we call moderate stress. 65% of them suffer from stress related due to academics. This is probably the highest percentage of stress anywhere in the world that students as a community need to face. To a large extent, this is due to our conditioning, the conditioning of our generation. Also, to a great extent, this is the conditioning that we have communicated knowingly or unknowingly to our children. Now, like most people out there, I have not done anything about it or even spoken about it till now. But in the last 24 hours, a couple of things happened which compelled me to, if nothing else, at least talk about it. Talk about the elephant in the room. So exactly what happened 24 hours ago? Well, the ISC results came out for the class of 2020. Now, I interact with a lot of students out there. I love spending time with students. And I was surprised by a few reactions. So I was talking to one of the students who had appeared for the ISC exams this year, and he told me that he hadn't slept the entire night because there was that much of fear and anxiety about the impending exam results. Another student that I spoke to said that she hadn't eaten the entire day. Yet another student told me that he was feeling feverish. Symptoms of stress, acute stress. What should have been a time or a moment of anticipation and excitement for the students had actually turned into a moment of great dread and fear about what is going to happen when the results come out. That was point number one. The other thing happened after the results were declared. 3 p.m. in the afternoon, when the results came out, I had a few calls coming in from students, and one of them said that that she felt that she was a complete failure. When I spoke to her, I asked her, how much did you get? And she said she had 90%. Another student that I spoke to had about 93%, which by any standards is a pretty high number. But that person said that he actually felt that he had let himself down and he had let everybody else down. As a psychologist, the three things that I observed in some of these students were shame, guilt, and extreme self-doubt. On the one hand, we are saying that children should be able to take flight, spread their wings. On the other hand, with the weight of these three emotions of shame, guilt, self-doubt, these are going to weigh the child so much that forget about flying. At times it's going to become difficult for them to even take a walk. Sometimes you forget that life is a long journey. You cannot run it like a 100-meter dash. If you try doing that, you're going to exhaust yourself. आप मैराथन भागते हैं, 40 किलोमीटर का जब मैराथन भागते हैं, आप थोड़ा आराम से भागते हैं. रास्ते में आप रुक भी जाते हैं. Sometimes you want water. Sometimes you just take a break because you know that it's not about the speed with which you run the marathon. It's about the perseverance. And you realize that in order to complete the marathon, it is important that you give yourself a break at times. Life is not too different. हमारी आदत बन गई है और ये आदत बच्चों को कम्युनिकेट कर दी गई है कि बेटा भागो, जल्दी भागो, because if you don't, somebody else is going to overtake you. But that puts a lot of stress. It puts a lot of stress on the child. So if you are a student, you need to tell yourself that it's a long journey and you don't really need to make a dash for it. You need to give yourself time to rest. अगर आप स्टूडेंट हैं तो मैं आपसे ये नहीं कहूँगा कि मार्क्स जरूरी नहीं है, because that would be bullshit. The fact is मार्क्स जरूरी हैं. कितने जरूरी हैं? That is the more vital question out there. So yes, marks are important. But what is more important than the marks? 3 things, I believe, which will make a huge difference. Resilience. आप लाइफ से जूझ रहे हैं, देयर आर बाउंड टू बी प्रॉब्लम्स. 12वीं में थी, ग्रेजुएशन में होंगी, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन में होंगी, बाद में करियर में होंगी. How you deal with those problems will define how successful you will be. Not the fact that you got a 90% or a 98% or a 99.9%. Resilience is the key. Of course, if you have a 99% and resilience, that's great. But if you have resilience, that more than makes up for the want of some of those marks that you probably didn't get. The second thing that is important is how you deal with crisis. Crisis जिंदगी में आएगा, ये निश्चित है. This is certain. If you have spent the early part of your life only trying to get marks or focusing on your performance, academic performance, and if you have not spent enough energy and time on ability to deal with crisis, my concern is that there will come a time in your life when a crisis will happen and you may not be able to deal with it in a way that you ought to deal with it. Let's take an example. You are writing your MBA entrance exam. MBA entrance exam से 4 दिन पहले कोई ऐसी घटना घटती है which puts a lot of pressure on your mind. Essentially, a crisis happens. No matter how smart you are, if you've not built yourself to handle a crisis situation, us dauran, you will go down, you will go under. But if you have spent enough time on building your crisis management ability, even if something is happening which shouldn't have happened, you'll be able to deal with that situation better. You will overcome that situation. आप नौकरी पे हैं, 10 प्रेशर्स होंगे आपके ऊपर, डेडलाइंस होंगी. If you've not built the ability to deal with crisis, आप उसको कैसे सॉल्व करोगे? 12वीं में कितनी परसेंटेज आई थी, ग्रेजुएशन में कितनी परसेंटेज आई थी, उस वक्त वो मायने नहीं रखेगी. What will matter at that time is your ability to deal with that crisis. So we're saying how you deal with crisis is important. Resilience is important. Thirdly, your social networking skills. आप कहीं भी हों, नौकरी पे, कॉलेज में, आपकी जो ability है to deal with people around you, whether it's your fellow students or your faculties or people who come to interview you, that is what is going to define your success. So marks जरूरी हैं, but क्या सिर्फ marks ही जरूरी हैं? No, there is a lot of other stuff, and I want you to focus on that too. एक दो चीजें मैं पेरेंट्स के लिए भी कहना चाहूंगा, और क्योंकि मैं खुद I'm a parent. ये तो निश्चित है that as parents we love our children. इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है. But sometimes we end up putting pressure on our children without realizing it. Negative messaging. तो अगर बच्चा 90% लाया है और हम उसको कहते हैं कि अच्छा है, लेकिन अगर 95 होते तो बेटा तुम इस यूनिवर्सिटी में भी या इस कॉलेज में भी तुम्हें एडमिशन मिल जाता. What you might be thinking in your mind is it's a factual statement. But the way it is getting communicated to your child is that despite getting a 90%, उसने तब भी कुछ नहीं पाया. या अगर हम देखते हैं कि बच्चा 3 घंटे पढ़ने के बाद बिस्तर पे लेटा हुआ है and we are of course worried कि उसको पढ़ाई करनी है, and we tell him कि बेटा ये वक्त अगर गुजर गया तो ये वक्त वापस नहीं आएगा. Now, nothing wrong with that statement, but what you're telling the child is that it is not healthy for the child to take a break even for 15 minutes after having studied for 2 or 3 hours. तो हम जो मैसेज कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं बच्चे को वो ये है कि बेटा जिंदगी लंबी है, बट तुम इसको तब भी एक 100 मीटर डैश की तरह you need to run that. Maybe we want to think about that message. Sometimes we end up telling the child that बेटा ये 4 साल की बात है, 5 साल की बात है, इसमें मेहनत कर लोगे तो आगे जाके सब ठीक हो जाएगा. In our mind we are thinking बच्चा अच्छे स्कूल में चला गया, अच्छे कॉलेज में चला गया, अच्छे MBA इंस्टीट्यूट में चला गया, then the life is set. But you know, this is not the right message. Why is it not the right message? Because it will never happen कि बच्चा MBA कॉलेज में चले गया और लाइफ ठीक हो जाएगी. Because MBA कॉलेज में जाने के बाद then he has to spend or she has to spend 2 more years of back-breaking hard labor. तो आप तो झूठे साबित हो गए ना, विदाउट वांटिंग टू बी सीन दैट वे। या एमबीए एंट्रेंस हो गई, एमबीए कॉलेज से बाहर निकल गए, बट नाउ यू जॉइन अ कंसल्टिंग फर्म। बच्चा सोच रहा है कि पेरेंट्स ने तो बोला था कि 4 साल काम कर लो, पढ़ाई कर लो, लाइफ सेट हो जाएगी, बट यहां पे तो मेरे को 16 घंटे काम करना पड़ रहा है। So the child starts feeling that it's never going to end, it's a never ending process, and that puts much more stress on the child. So rather than saying 3 साल काम कर लो, 4 साल काम कर लो and life set हो जाएगी, wouldn't it be better to say, look, it's a continuous process, आपको मेहनत करती रहनी पड़ेगी, but बीच बीच में ब्रेक लेते रहो, because if you don't do that, you become like a car which is being driven 24 hours, 365 days a year. Someday, some moment, it is going to break down. And it's going to break down when it needs not to break down the most. एक और चीज which as a parent I see happening a lot of times, और कई बार मेरे साथ भी होती है, we end up expecting our children to do stuff that we couldn't do, or in a way to live our lives again, you know. And we see our lives being lived out through them. So हम आईटी में नहीं घुस पाए तो चलो बच्चा आईटी में घुस के दिखाएगा। हम टॉप मेडिकल एंट्रेंस एग्जाम नहीं क्रैक कर पाए, बच्चा करके दिखाएगा। हम आईएम में नहीं जा पाए, हार्वर्ड में नहीं जा पाए, बच्चा करके दिखाएगा। We may not say it, but children are smart. Children are sensitive. They see what we are not saying. We have done what we wanted to do, and if we've not done it, that's on us, not on the child. For the child, it is their opportunity to do what they want to do, the way they want to do it, which means they might make mistakes out there. They don't need you to prevent them from making the mistake. They need you to be there to pick them up after they've made a mistake. And if you can do that, I think that's what we really need to do as a parent. Unfortunately, we are living in a time today जहाँ पे सिर्फ बच्चा स्ट्रेस नहीं है, पेरेंट्स भी स्ट्रेस्ड हैं, दोनों स्ट्रेस्ड हैं। और ये स्ट्रेस किसी गलत वजह से नहीं है। It is for all the apparently right reasons. Children are stressed because they want to do a lot of stuff. Parents stress हैं, कुछ आकांक्षाएं हैं, बच्चों से आशाएं हैं। But the fact is, आप स्ट्रेस होके काम करेंगे तो जो आप हासिल कर भी सकते हैं, आप वो हासिल नहीं कर पाएंगे। मुझे इकबाल की कुछ पंक्तियां याद आती हैं, especially when he says, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे, बोल तेरी रज़ा क्या है। I think if we are able to create within our children and even within ourselves that feeling, we are on our way to combating the stress. Like most of you, I too believe that our children, students of today, are the future of tomorrow for all of us. But the fact is, if they continuously keep running only after marks, and if we don't do anything to help them change that, tomorrow's generation will be a bunch of highly academically inclined people, but without the ability to manage all the crises and all the things that life is going to throw at them. And that would be a pity. For the younger generation, the message I want to leave you with is, you are not defined by your marks. You are much more than what your marks are. Much more than that. And it'll be lovely if you can believe that. For the parents, you know, I wonder at times, हम लोग बड़े खुश होते हैं जब हम सीक्रेट सुपरस्टार देखते हैं या तारे ज़मीन पर देखते हैं, and we talk about कितना beautiful portrayal है, but when it comes to our own children, somehow ये feelings disappear हो जाती हैं, हम एक अलग इंसान बन जाते हैं. Why is it that we cannot incorporate some of those things in our own lives with our own children, with ourselves? The reason I did this video was not to be pedantic or to sermonize. The idea was that if this can help even one child out there, or if it can help even one parent out there to enable the child to think differently beyond marks, then this is, a successful venture, a successful idea. My request to you is, ये ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आप इस वीडियो को लाइक करें, but it'll be lovely if you can share this, because by your sharing, we can make a difference to even one life out there, one student or one family. Then this would really be a successful venture. Thank you so much for watching.